Hey everybody, welcome back to Horror Trans. My name is Stephanie Bree. I'm a transgender woman, and I talk about all things horror. And it's time for a new episode of the Horror Trans podcast. This is a show where I dig into the other stuff that doesn't fit into my horror reviews. Got a lot to get through this episode, so hopefully it all makes sense. I didn't watch a lot of horror movies last week. I only watched four movies last week, not counting the one that I watched for my Patreon video that didn't work out because I fucked up the audio. But anyways, so I'll start off with what I did watch. Last night I watched Species 2 because I wanted to review it. I've seen it once before, but it's been so long I couldn't remember anything about it. I did watch Pirates of the Caribbean Dead Man's Chest, which is my all-time favorite Pirates of the Caribbean movie, for my bonus Patreon, um, commentary. So if you want to go check that out, it's only $1 a month. To start, we have 3 or 4 tiers, I think. And just for fun, I did watch 2 Avengers movies last week. I watched Infinity War and Endgame back to back. I know those aren't technically horror, but that's what I watched. Infinity War, I'll just go ahead and say I'm still not a fan of. Endgame, I like most of it, but I don't know. I'm not as hip on it as most people. So let's go ahead and get into news and rumors. I got a few stories, so I'll go ahead and pull those up. This first one comes from Bloody Disgusting, and it says Lisa Frankenstein is going to take place in the same universe as Jennifer's Body. It's written by Diablo Cody, who wrote Jennifer's Body. And it's coming out this weekend, in fact, just in a few days. She says, I am just declaring that this movie takes place in the same universe. I have decided that. I will not say that you'd see any overt references, but that I'm saying it. And she also went on to say she's not done with the world of Jennifer's Body, and she is writing a sequel soon. So that's a little update on a horror movie, Lisa Frankenstein, that's coming out in a couple of days this weekend. So it might be worth checking out. I know nothing about this movie, but I liked Jennifer's Body. Okay, I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it. And Juno's pretty fucking good. I loved Juno. So there is that. All right. Also from Bloody Disgusting, we have a report saying Don Mancini is considering sending Chucky to outer space. Now, I saw this article on other news sites, but I'm go ahead and looking at the Bloody Disgusting one, and it basically says that if fans want it, they'll go ahead and do it. His quote is saying, "We found that Chucky operates successfully in all kinds of different tones and subgenres, whether it's horror or comedy, places in between. So I think as a character, he's versatile enough and appealing enough and interesting enough that he could probably go anywhere, even into outer space." Recently, he said that if fans want it, he's got an idea for it. So, you know, I'm down for that. I'm just waiting for them to do Ghostface in space. To tell you the truth, that's the one I want to see. Another one coming also from Bloody Disgusting. Evil Dead's Sebastian, I'm gonna say this wrong, Vanecek, is directing an official Evil Dead spin-off movie. It says that he has been hired by Sam Raimi to direct an untitled Evil Dead spin-off movie. Details as to the film's plot are under wraps, blah, blah, blah. Doesn't really have anything else of interesting. It's just talking about other Evil Dead movies. So, allegedly, there is an Evil Dead spin-off coming soon. I don't know if this will be like an Army of Darkness type thing where it's like technically an Evil Dead movie or what. But after watching Evil Dead Rise, I definitely see room for more Evil Dead if they want to. Now, this one is coming from Joe Blow Horror. And it says the new Blade MCU movie is going to be rated R, and Lilith is going to be the main villain. Now, as a pagan, Lilith is one of the goddesses I revere. But I think this will be the Marvel Universe version of Lilith, which I know nothing about because I do not read Blade comics or any comic that has any no Marvel comics that have horror or supernatural elements to them. I mostly stick to X-Men and occasionally Spider-Man. But anyways, I think that's interesting that Marvel is still grasping at straws, hoping to cobble together a new round of MCU movies where I'm pretty sure most people are just fucking over it, but we'll see. Also, according to Joe Blow, Scream 7 is reportedly going to have Neve Campbell coming back, and a new director is possibly rumored. The director's name is John Hyams. Looks like a recap of everything that's happened up to this point. It looks like the studio is willing to pay Neve what she wants to come back. And the rumor is Scream 7 might be getting rushed into production soon. It looks like the director has done Universal Soldier movies, Dragon Eyes, Z Nation, and Chucky, and an episode or two of Chucky. Nothing to brag about, unfortunately. So it's not looking good for Scream 7 still. I'm thinking they're just like, well, this is the only guy we can get, but let's pay for Neve and see what we can get. I don't know. Scream 7 looks like it's going to fucking bomb. According to iHorror.com, a new Texas Chainsaw Massacre film is reportedly in the works. I saw this on a couple other news sites as well. This is just a rumor at this point. Allegedly, the movie is going to be titled Texas Chainsaw Legacy. No release date or anything else has been announced or speculated. No idea if it'll be related to the Netflix Chainsaw Massacre or not. Just, this is a rumor, so make of it what you will. I don't give a shit. I'm over Texas Chainsaw at this point. Also, according to iHorror.com, this one is listed under news. Tim Burton is remaking Attack of the 50-Foot Woman. This is a 1950s sci-fi movie. Probably, I would guess, a B movie, but I've never seen it. Looks like it's been remade before, so I don't know, whatever. I guess Tim Burton's weird enough. He could probably pull it off. But that's all I have for news and rumors. So, not a lot going on. But a couple of things I thought were interesting. I'm going to bullshit my way through this first topic, because I don't know a lot about it. I only have 2 examples. They are severely dated, but I'm going to talk a little bit about anime horror. or anime and horror. Um, I have not seen a lot of cartoons that are horror. I mean, that are like straight up horror in my time, mostly because I don't watch cartoons. But I do believe their anime tends to attract horror or do horror more frequently than just traditional animation, I would say, depending on what you consider a cartoon or adult animation, I guess, or what you consider horror. I only have two dated examples of anime horror. Neither one of them are spectacular, in my opinion, and why I'm not a fan. One of the reasons I'm not a fan of anime or anime as horror, but I want to talk about them. The first one is Vampire Hunter D. I was coerced into watching this because I like vampires, and I was really big into Castlevania back in the day, and so I have a friend who is a big anime nut. I gotta push the cat out of the way because he's being nosy. Who twisted my arm into watching this film, and I gotta say I was not a fan of it. I'm gonna be honest. I've seen this movie 6 times in my life because I have other anime and horror fans who told me, "Oh, you just don't understand it." And every time I watch it, I'm like, "Yeah, I still don't fucking understand it. So why am I watching this shit?" So clearly, I'm not a fan of Vampire Hunter D. I am not the target audience for Vampire Hunter D, obviously. Um, but this is the example people cite as anime can do horror well, allegedly. And so, if this is like the best horror anime to sell people on horror anime, I'm not sold. The second one I ended up watching on my own because in the 90s, when anime was still making its waves in the US and people didn't know what the fuck it was yet, it was still new and shiny. So I signed up for the Columbia House Anime VHS Club. So I got a different anime videotape in the mail every month. And one month, my random anime tape was a movie called Wrath of the Ninja, which didn't make a lick of sense at all, and I still don't know what the fuck is the point of this movie. But I later found out that it's actually a season of a TV show that was chopped up and re-edited into a movie, which like explains why it doesn't make fucking sense, but also why the fuck would you do that? You know? I don't know. This is also sometimes brought up as an example of anime horror that people try to convince me that horror and anime go together, and I'm still not fucking convinced. So I have not seen Wicked City or Demon City. Those are the other ones that people cite. Again, those are fucking dated as shit. So I don't know if there's anything newer than any of these that would convince me. Not a fan of anime to begin with, so I don't think horror should be done as a cartoon, whether it's an adult cartoon or not. I'm not a fan of cartoons anyways, and anime is just a fancy word for cartoon. It's all it is. It's just a fucking cartoon. It's all it is. And I hate how pretentious people are about it. Get over yourselves. It's just a fucking cartoon. I've got a horror video game slash tabletop RPG I kind of want to talk about. I have no experience with the tabletop RPG. I only recently found out that it exists. But I did play the video game on the Nintendo GameCube back in the day, and I really loved it. This game is called Hunter the Reckoning, and it's the video game plays kind of like an X-Men Legends type game, or a Diablo type game, Diablo 3 in a way, where it's like a top-down pseudo 3D overhead perspective video game where you're shooting undead monsters, I guess, with crossbows. The only reason why I wanted to bring this up, and this isn't going to be like much of a topic, was because I actually have an interest in horror themed role playing games. Diablo is one of my favorite video games. The franchise is one of my favorite video game franchises, and I love the Ravenloft setting in Dungeons and Dragons official D&D stuff. So this is one that's on my radar. I definitely want to check out. This isn't. I know this isn't the kind of topic you're looking for. I'm not very knowledgeable, but I'm going to do my research and probably revisit this in the near future. I might actually try to get my hands on one of the rule books or boxed sets or a module or something from this game, just so I can like check it out and give you more info on it. But as far as tabletop RPGs go that are set in a horror setting or horror theme, Hunter is one of the big three. The other ones are Call of Cthulhu and Vampire the Masquerade. I have no experience with either of them either. But Hunter the Reckoning, only thing I know about it is from what I vaguely remember from playing the video game like literally 20 fucking years ago. It was a fun video game, but I don't believe it was a GameCube exclusive, but I believe it was only on GameCube and Xbox. I don't believe it was on PC or PS2, so it didn't have a very big reach because it was on two consoles that nobody fucking bought. So most people probably don't remember Hunter the Reckoning, the video game. I don't remember that much about it, other than you're like a dude with a crossbow and you're shooting monsters with your crossbow, and that's all I remember. Not enough to go on. I think it's like zombies and vampires and whatnot that you're shooting. If I ever do get an opportunity to play GameCube again, this is one of the first games I plan on getting, because I want to revisit it and talk more about it in the future. So my question to you is, do you have any experience with either the RPG or the video game? If you do, what are your thoughts on it? Is Hunter the Reckoning a tabletop RPG worth looking into? If not, why not? If so, tell me more about it. This next topic might take a little bit more because this is a combination of a horror topic, but it's also like pseudo-religious, kind of, sort of. I've been dying to talk about demons on this podcast, and so I brought up, first of all, I brought up a Wikipedia article that I'm going to reference and read through a little bit. I'm not going to read it, but I'm going to reference it. But I have studied demons quite a bit as a dark witch and a chaos witch. I kind of tame demons, specifically succubi and incubi, for reasons that aren't what you would think, but let's not get into that. Which is part of why I have a somewhat working relationship, a professional relationship, if you will, with Lilith, the Queen of Hell, as a pagan. But let's talk about demons. Demons exist in some form or another in literally every culture on the planet. They take different shapes and different forms. But even Native Americans, scholars argue that the Wendigo is a form of demon, sort of. So this kind of raises a lot of questions about the origins of demons as supernatural or, I don't know, possibly extraterrestrial or extraplanar entities, as well as, the metaphors that demons represent in human psychology. So let's go ahead and scroll through the Wikipedia article. The word demon basically is in Greek alliteration, sort of different words. It has weird origins. It's a pretty much just means spirit or divine power. That's literally all it means. But it's been applied to different spirits from different religions. It looks like the oldest references to creatures that we would refer to as demons come from Egyptian and Middle Eastern mythologies, Judaism, Zoroastrianism, and Mesopotamian religions. I already knew this. This is how I discovered Lilith in the first place, as well as Baal or Belial, some people refer to him as, was one of the ancient gods or demons that I used to work with ages ago. So I did a lot of research on that. It does look like there's also type of demons in certain Indian religions, and it's very extensively discussed in the Christian mythologies, the various Christian mythologies, Catholicism, Gnosticism, evangelicalism, etc. So pretty much all the different religions of the world have some mythology related to evil spirits that come from another plane that possess humans and do bad things. Now, most religions, demons are depicted as evil spirits. Now, some believe, depending on your religious view, that this is propaganda, religious propaganda, that demons are actually more likely neutral spirits. Some of them might have malicious intent. At least according to some views. My personal view is that they're not inherently evil, but they do bad things because they've pretty much been typecast as evil and bullied and, shat upon for all of human history, that they're just like, fuck humans, you guys suck. So they fuck with us just because we shit on them. And they're just like over it. You know what I mean? In the Christian mythology, which has its roots in Zoroastrianism and Judaism, demons are fallen angels from heaven who become corrupted when they rebel against God and they wage a war against God. Basically because they believe in free will, and angels don't have free will. But if they don't have free will, how are they able to rebel? That's never explained. And if they're just automatons or whatever, they're just basically robots who are pre-programmed, then that begs the question, why did God create them specifically to rebel against him, just so he could punish them for rebelling against him? It makes no fucking sense. I've never heard anyone in any of the Christian mythologies or religions ever be able to give me a satisfying explanation for that. Because I don't think you can, because I think it comes down to God is a sadist and he just likes to fuck with people because it amuses him, I guess. Which, is one of the reasons why a lot of people who aren't Christian have a problem with Christianity. Because who wants to worship a God that's going to torture you just for his own amusement? I mean, that's kind of like, what the fuck? Now, demons also exist in pop culture, specifically in horror, but they also exist in video games, and we'll talk about role-playing games as well. Now, most demons in horror are depicted as evil spirits, usually from the Christian slant. So they're often depicted as either fallen angels, or at the very least, they're agents of Satan or the minions of hell and the forces of evil, allegedly. Now, I've talked about this previously, but in Buffy the Vampire Slayer lore, it's actually demons who are the ancient ones, who are ancient evils, who are the ones possessing humans that create the vampires of Buffy the Vampire Slayer lore. And going back to Lilith here for a second, depending on which mythology you're reading, she's either the mother of demons, the queen of hell, or the mother of vampires, depending on the mythology. So there's a lot of overlap between demons and vampires. So in horror, you could make a case that all vampires are demons. I don't think that's much of a stretch. But then you're getting into, well, then what the fuck is their point? What are demons after? The most famous examples of demons in horror would be exorcism movies. The big one is just titled The Exorcist, which was also the first one. But there are a fucking score of demon possession movies out there. And a ton of movies, horror movies, that reference demon-esque creatures or spirits from other cultures, like the jinn from the Middle Eastern religions that appear in Wishmaster, as well as other horror movies. And also, you have like I've said, you have the vampires from that show up in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Those come from, I believe, Mesopotamian religions. And then you have demons. You have the demons that are, I guess they're like otherworldly travelers, like from other planes of existence, you know, that come from different mythologies. These are not often depicted in film, more like in fiction, science fiction, and horror and fantasy fiction. And then you have at least one example I know of where the Native American demon, the Wendigo, is blamed for the troubles of the movie, which is Stephen King's Pet Sematary. Now, the Wendigo may appear in other horror films that I just haven't watched yet or researched yet. So I have a list of potential Wendigo inspired or related horror films on my list of movies to watch that I just haven't gotten to yet, but it is a fascinating concept to me. So it's one that I definitely want to explore and learn more about. Now, in Irish paganism and some of the Celtic religions and the Gothic religions of Europe, you have related spirits referred to as the Fae that are not necessarily demons, but they have a lot of the similar attributes as demons, especially leprechauns, who are more like tricksters than actual evil spirits, but they will kill you. And their depiction in horror is most notably the Leprechaun film franchise, which I would not say is very historically accurate to the mythology of leprechauns, but it is, loosely based on those myths. Coming at it from a primarily Irish pagan perspective, which is where most of my beliefs come from, I have a belief system that demons are not evil spirits. They're just misunderstood spirits. So my belief is that they are extraplanar travelers from another dimension who found their way to Earth, or the material plane, if you will, if you're going to use terminology from Dungeons and Dragons, where they tempted humans or taught humans the concept of free will. But because of the dogmas of the religions of the time, free will was considered bad. You were just supposed to accept the word of God, whichever God it was you worshipped, and you were just supposed to be a slave to that deity. You were just supposed to, follow the book, do the rituals, say the prayers, light the candles, etc. And you weren't supposed to question it, and you weren't supposed to do things that were outside of that. And demons taught humans free will. And so the religions responded by labeling demons as evil and attacked them, and then went out of their way to tell people stay the fuck away from them, and waged a war on the demons. And so demons became hostile and hostile and animus towards humans, and are basically like, fuck you. Then if you're gonna reject our gift of free will, fuck you, we're going to take away your free will, and we're just going to make you do the things that we want you to do anyways. And this is where demon possession comes into it. Now, if you're going to go I've already mentioned Dungeons and Dragons, and this is the view of demons in D&D is carried over into other tabletop RPGs as well, such as Pathfinder and Dungeon Crawl Classics and others. again, taking the stance that they are extraplanar creatures. In Dungeons and Dragons, they specifically come from a dimension known as the Abyss, and they are described as chaotic evil creatures whose sole existence is to spread chaos. This interpretation does appeal to me as a chaos witch, because I kind of worship chaos and am an agent of chaos. Not like the fucking Joker in The Dark Knight, who says he's an agent of chaos, but then uses law and order to... No, whatever. He is not chaos. He is the opposite of fucking chaos. Chaos does not make plans like he does. 12 steps ahead. That's not chaos. That's law and order. That's the opposite of chaos. He is not chaos. He's full of shit. That's one of the reasons why I think he's the worst Joker. Because he's all, ooh, I'm all about chaos, but I'm also going to meticulously plan out every step and have 12 contingency steps just in case. That's not chaos. Chaos is, I'm just going to walk into this bank and unload a clip into everybody in the bank and then just walk to McDonald's and buy a cheeseburger and see what happens. That's chaos. The Joker is not chaos. So this middle finger is to Christopher Nolan and his misunderstanding of chaos. But as a chaos witch, I definitely am drawn to the chaotic evil nature of D&D demons, which again I believe are creatures that are misunderstood. And if you get into the mythology of Dungeons and Dragons, they were basically creatures that had a dimension of their own that was invaded and destroyed by other creatures. So they responded by using supernatural powers and magical artifacts to create their own dimension, the Abyss, where they could wage war, the Blood War, on those who destroyed their home dimension. Because they're just like, well, fuck, we just wanted to, like, live, and people destroyed our home, and we're just like, fuck this, what do we do? And so they turned evil. I don't think they're necessarily evil per se, even though they're described as such in D&D. I think they're victims of happenstance, you know? They're like the Native American tribes. They were displaced from their land and identified as savages so people could justify displacing them. And I think that's what D&D demons are. They're the natives of that plane, and they were displaced, and they're just like holed up in the Abyss because that's the only safe space they could find. And they're just like, fuck it, let's just live our life. And people are like, hey, we want to do bad things. Let's summon demons out of the Abyss and bend them to our will. And demons are just so fucking over it. They're like, fuck you, we're just going to do bad things because they're over being manipulated and treated like shit. Where I know that Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson and the other writers of the Dungeons & Dragons mythology, Dave Cook, Monty Cook, etc., they probably drew inspiration from Christian mythology, most likely. So they just said, oh yeah, demons equal bad. So they branded them as chaotic evil because, you know, that's what people expected from them. Which I do not agree with. I think that they are presented in the Dungeons & Dragons lore, as I've described them here, misunderstood extraplanar creatures that are just trying to fucking survive. And since everybody hates them, they're just like, fuck you too. You know what I mean? Kind of like how, you know, African Americans in the U.S. hate cops because cops are just like, well, you suck. We're going to just say you're evil by nature and fuck with you. And so they're just like, you know what? We hate cops. Same way with, you know, I'm a queer woman. You know, we're just kind of like, well, society says we're evil. So we're just going to say fuck you and we're just going to do our own thing. And you're going to describe us as evil because what we want to do doesn't fit your fucking little narrative. Which is one of the reasons why a lot of trans women in particular are drawn to witchcraft and pagan religions, because we're all about that free will that some of these other religions paint as evil. And I think a lot of it just comes down to, what's your view of free will? Are you a slave to your religion? Or do you believe you have agency in your choices? Do you believe in destiny and shit is going to just do its thing? The universe has already written the script to your life, and there's not a goddamn thing you can do about it. So if you do bad things, that's because the universe predestined you to do bad things. That's a fucking cop-out. And that's an easy way to just absolve yourself of responsibility, which I am not a fan of. So I am of the view that demons are often erroneously depicted in film and literature based on the way they were treated in mythology, which comes from a place of fear of the unknown, a fear of others. And, if the gods and the titans and other, the fae and other spiritual creatures came from other planes, different planes from the demons, then they brought their prejudices with them, and they're like, hey, you're not from our plane of existence, so fuck you, we think you're bad. You're more powerful than the humans, so we can't enslave you. And since we can't enslave you like we can the humans, who have no supernatural powers inherent on their own, we're just going to brand you as evil and turn the humans against you, is kind of the vibe I get from most mythologies. So that's my personal take on demons. Let me know what you think about demons. Try to be respectful and don't come at me. Do not quote the fucking Bible in the comments or ever on my podcast or on my Twitter or at me at all. I've read the goddamn Bible. I don't fucking need to hear it again. I already know what the fuck it says, so just don't even fucking bother. Next topic is related to these last two, and it's horror settings in Dungeons & Dragons specifically, but also tabletop role-playing games in general. Now, there are not a lot of horror-specific settings in official D&D lore. The official horror setting, as I've already stated, is Ravenloft. Ravenloft, which is mostly inspired by gothic horror, specifically Dracula, the novel, and the myths surrounding Dracula. Because the Ravenloft module is essentially Dracula's castle, more or less. It's just you're playing a game of Castlevania using D&D rules. That's basically what it is. There are not a lot of blatant or inherent horror settings in official D&D, but I would argue you could make a case that Spelljammer and definitely Dark Sun are very much ripe for horror settings, especially Dark Sun being a world that is devoid of good and has no gods in it to protect humans or orcs, elves, etc. So you're basically left with filling in the blanks. You're basically on your own, and you have to kind of fill in the blanks. So it's up to the dungeon master to take that setting and say, if I want this to have horror elements, I just got to do it myself. Now, I think the standard D&D setting, which is Forgotten Realms, and the previous standard setting, Greyhawk, definitely can be used to tell horror stories, especially when most Dungeons & Dragons campaigns literally start off with you going into a crypt and your first encounter is undead skeletons. That's horror. So D&D definitely has horror in it, pretty much from the jump. So I think that exploring the additional, for starters, I think we need more fleshed out horror settings in Dungeons & Dragons that aren't just based on Dracula and, Gothic literature. I think we need stuff, that digs into, I know we have Call of Cthulhu, but I think we need stuff that specific setting that digs more into, the extraplanar horrors, the cosmic horror, if you will. This is stuff like the Beholders and the Mind Flayers, and also, previously mentioned demons and as well as devils from the Nine Hells. those make good horror villains as well, horror creatures. You could have a horror setting that is set in, like, I don't know, a temple somewhere, an ancient temple, and you're fighting, like, you know, I don't know, Anubis and undead mummies and skeletons and demonic mythological Egyptian style creatures from Egyptian mythology, if you wanted to, and you could make a horror campaign out of that. It doesn't have to be Ravenloft if you want to get a good horror setting in your Dungeons and Dragons game. Now, outside of Dungeons and Dragons, I've already mentioned you have Hunter the Reckoning, you have Vampire the Masquerade, and you have Call of Cthulhu. But those are whole different games, entirely different games, which I imagine could conceivably be adapted to work with Dungeons and Dragons rules. But again, if you're going to go that far, why not just create your own setting, I guess? Which is what I prefer to do anyways. Now, this last topic is the TV show I wanted to get into this week. One that I have not seen that much of, so I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not a fan of this TV show, but I wanted to talk about it because it's a horror show a lot of people rave about. And I just wanted to touch on why I don't like it. And why I don't want to watch it. Why I couldn't get past the first 2 episodes. The show is called True Blood. Now, I am a fan of Anna Paquin, which is between that and having, a love of horror and a fascination with vampires, is why I initially wanted to see True Blood, because I thought, oh, this looks like it could be cool. However, I have 2 problems with True Blood right off the bat, and my problems with them I could not overcome to enjoy the show. My first problem goes back to being a queer woman, a minority in America, and this is how vampires are depicted as the others in the True Blood franchise. They exist. They're recognized as a species or type of human, I guess, or living creature, but they're second-class citizens that are meant to be feared and mistrusted, and you're supposed to avoid them at all costs. And so there are rules in place, laws in place to restrict their behaviors that the others, those in power, consider unsavory. And as a queer woman, I see this as just an allegory for, oh yeah, the vampires are basically queers, and we're gonna just say, you know what, they're deviants. Let's just pass all kinds of fucking laws to restrict them, so we don't have to be exposed to their so-called deviant behavior. And that gets a middle finger from me. The second problem I have with True Blood is the problem I'm going to have with a lot of HBO and Cinemax shows. I am an asexual individual. I am a virgin, and I am not ashamed of it. And I have no sexual desire or attractions. I do not watch pornography. Never have, never will. And I am not a fan of movies that have depictions of gratuitous sexuality. And True Blood was basically a fucking vampire porno, is all it is. And I'm not here for that. I'm not here for that at all. So, I will not be watching True Blood. I will not be reviewing True Blood, ever. And this is the last time I'm ever going to talk about it. And this is the only thing I'm ever going to say about it. I'm not fucking interested. So, you are perfectly free to enjoy it if you do. Good for you, I guess. Just know that I have my reasons, and I'm not going to be swayed at all. So there is that. That pretty much wraps up the show as far as topics. So again, just general housekeeping. I still have my book, Goldfish on the Mountain. It is a horror thriller. You can find it on Amazon. It's also available on Amazon Unlimited if you happen to have that, if you want to read the ebook. So you can definitely check it out that way. As always, if you want to follow me on social media, I'm on Twitter. My handle is Stephanie Bree 22. That's Bree, B-R-I. If you're in the mood for giving me money, Stephanie Bree 22 is also my Venmo, Cash App, and PayPal handle. So if you like my content and you're like, you want to, buy me a pack of cigars or a rock star or whatever, or just, maybe you like my toy channel and you want to give me the money to buy a toy, specify which toy you want me to buy and I'll do my best, or if you want to buy me a toy and send it to me, let me know, you know. Um, I'm down for that. Just reach out to me. That you can find me on, like I said, Twitter or in the comments on these videos. And I also have a Patreon. I do want you to please consider checking out the Patreon. I have 3 perks. I have 3 or 4 tiers. The lowest tier is $1. You get the same perks at every tier. So it's basically just what you feel like you want to support me at. A couple of people give me the $5 tier. A couple of people give me the $1 tier. It's up to you. The first perk is, as is common for these kinds of Patreons, you'll get your name mentioned in a video where I'll say, hey, thank you for my Patreon supporters, and I'll read your names. And the other perk you get is at least once a month, but I try to do one a week. I do an audio commentary where I watch a movie and talk about it. It's usually a horror movie. If it's not a horror movie, it'll be a sci-fi or fantasy movie or something in that ballpark. And I'll commentate on it. Occasionally, I bring a guest. Her name is Gavi. She's my best friend in real life. And we sometimes watch B movies and shit on them. But that's not the purpose of the commentaries. It's not really like a riff tracks, or I just want to put that out there. It's not a riff tracks. It's not a Mystery Science Theater 3 where we're just trying to make fun of the movie. It's literally just our thoughts on the movie. If the movie sucks, we're going to call it out. If the movie's good, we're going to say, but we're also going to poke holes in the plot if there are holes to poke. So, you consider that like a bonus commentary. You have to get the movie yourself and watch it with the commentary playing, presumably in the background. That's how it works. I usually tell you when I'm starting the movie, and I try to read the title credits so you can sync up the audio so you at least know where to be in the movie when you're watching it. It's okay if you're like a few seconds off. It's okay. Because there's lulls, obviously, as I'm watching the movie and trying to think of something to say, or just enjoying the movie sometimes if it's a good movie, because I don't always watch bad movies. The third piece of bonus content you get is a monthly Zoom where you get Ask Me Anything. It's straight up, just nothing is off limits except for my private life and my sex life, obviously, and my girlfriend. So my relationships, those are off limits. But everything else, any question you want, you can ask me about my comic books. You can ask me about my toys, my cat, jobs I've had. I've had over 110 jobs in my career. I've done videos on it on my main channel. If you want to ask me specific questions about my time as a journalist, whatever, but you can ask me anything. You get roughly an hour or so, depending on the time limit Zoom puts on the meeting, and I do those once a month. If nobody shows up, then there's no then it's fine. But that's the other piece of bonus content. So if you want to find my Patreon, just go to patreon.com/Stephanie Bree. Again, that's BRI. I'll try to put a link in the description of this video. I usually do, but sometimes I forget. Now, the Patreon link says that I try to do a bonus commentary every week. Sometimes I have technical difficulties, so it doesn't, or work schedules get in the way. So it's not my commitment is once a month. My official commitment is one a month, but I do my best to do one a week. Sometimes I'll do 2 in a week. If it's been a couple of weeks since I've done one, I'll try to make up for it. But again, because these you have to pay to see, every once in a while, If I have one that I think is particularly fun, I'll make it public just so people can get a taste of what it is I'm doing, so you can decide for yourself if you want to commit. There's a couple of free ones already on my channel. You can go back and watch those. I've done A Nightmare on Elm Street, and I can't remember the last one I did. But I did some stupid B movie like a month or two ago, so you can check that out. Anyways, that's all I got for this week, so stay cool.